It didn't take a scandal, a lawsuit, or a leaked email. Just 4 words. Don't use my name. Sharp, unshakable. And coming from Sir David Attenborough, a man whose integrity is practically sacred. In that moment, Meghan Markle's glossy new lifestyle of brand didn't just stumble, it was exposed. One quiet refusal from one of the most respected voices on the planet did more damage than any tabloid ever could. Because when someone like Attenborough, a global beacon of truth, environmental stewardship, and quiet authority, speaks, the world doesn't just hear him, they trust him. For years, Meghan has leaned into her celebrity clout, riding the waves of royal fame and Hollywood influence. With Netflix deals, empowerment speeches, and spiritual soundbites, she cultivated a brand built on borrowed prestige. She's strategically aligned herself with powerhouses, from Oprah to Diana's legacy, to casually name-dropping Barack and Michelle Obama. The formula was always clear. Stay in the orbit of icons, and their light might shine on you too. But this time, that strategy exploded in her face. Her brand, American Riviera Orchard, was supposed to be the next chapter, a rebrand soaked in minimalist aesthetics, pastel hues, and eco-chic marketing. Think handcrafted jam, orchard-inspired photo shoots, and luxury gardening tools, all designed to whisper sustainability, sophistication, and soulful living. And tucked among it all, a gentle nod to Sir David Attenborough, hinting that he'd been the inspiration behind her environmental ethos. The message was subtle but powerful. If someone like Attenborough backs it, it must be genuine. Except he didn't. Not only was he never involved, he hadn't even been approached. The first time his name came up was when someone brought the ad to his attention, and he wasn't amused. Attenborough's reply? Brutal in its brevity. Don't use my name. That was all it took. The illusion shattered overnight. Social media erupted with disbelief, mockery, and memes. Users flooded X and TikTok with clips of Attenborough's iconic documentaries, now edited with captions like, "He saved ecosystems, not your jam business." The backlash was swift and ruthless. The hashtag "Don't Use My Name" exploded across social media. Meghan's usually quick-to-react team, known for spinning glossy statements and soulful Instagram captions, went completely dark. No press statement, no serene video montage with moody piano music, just silence. And ironically, that silence said more than any caption ever could. Because here's the truth, when your entire public image is built on borrowed credibility, all it takes is one rejection, especially from a titan like Attenborough, to send the whole facade crashing down. And let's be clear, this wasn't just any kind of pushback. This came from Sir David Attenborough, a man who stood beside kings and queens, trekked through Earth's most untouched corners, and dedicated his life to preserving our planet. He doesn't chase headlines. He doesn't pose for lifestyle campaigns. And he certainly doesn't co-sign luxury jam brands with floral packaging and influencer-tier photo ops. Attenborough is the gold standard of integrity. That's what made Meghan's downfall so brutal. Her brand, marketed as intentional, earth-conscious, and deeply spiritual, began to look more like a polished illusion. The eco-talk, critics now call it greenwashing. The wellness image, labeled celebrity cosplay. What was supposed to feel authentic started to come off as rehearsed and hollow. Once Attenborough publicly disowned any connection, the dominoes fell fast. Former supporters went quiet. Influencers who proudly unboxed American Riviera Orchard gift baskets suddenly stopped posting. Collaborators distanced themselves. And worst of all, Meghan didn't just lose control of the narrative. She lost her access. Because if there's one unspoken rule in Hollywood and elite circles alike, it's this. You don't align with someone who just got rejected by a living legend, especially not over artisanal jam. The real sting wasn't just Attenborough's cutting statement, it was the fallout that followed. Meghan's entire playbook was built on proximity to power. Mention the right icons, wear the right values, and let the audience draw flattering conclusions. But now, with the most respected voice in environmentalism publicly drawing a line, people started digging deeper. And what they found? It wasn't flattering. Take the product launch. From the outside, it looked like the next coming of Goop, filtered through sun-drenched orchards, vintage baskets, and manicured backyards. But the whole thing felt more like a Pinterest board labeled wholesome rich girl vibes than a meaningful movement. Behind the flawless filters and cryptic captions about living sustainably, glaring red flags were hard to ignore. Products were scarce or mysteriously unavailable. The website teased exclusive jam launches, but most visitors never even saw the buy button before it all sold out. And those eco-friendly claims? More aesthetic than actual substance. Critics didn't need to do a deep dive. Packaging labeled recyclable wasn't. Ingredients that were supposedly locally sourced turned out to be anything but. Even the brand's mission statement read like a Pinterest board of greenwash jargon, full of trendy buzzwords but missing transparency, facts, or accountability. Still, Meghan stood by her vision, quiet, poised, and unmoved. That is, until Attenborough's name got pulled into the chaos. And just like that, this wasn't just a case of an overhyped celebrity project, it had morphed into a full-blown PR disaster. The fallout was swift. Hollywood insiders who once cheered her on began to retreat. Influencers who had proudly posted their American Riviera orchard unboxings on TikTok suddenly went radio silent. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. Her PR team was in crisis mode, reaching out behind closed doors, trying to explain, smooth things over, even offering to clarify the Attenborough connection quietly. But the damage was done, and it was deeper than just optics. Reports of internal dysfunction began to surface. Several high-level team members, including veterans from powerhouse companies like Apple and Netflix, began walking away. 4 major resignations in just a few weeks. The moment People magazine, long considered friendly to Meghan, started reporting on the staff exodus, it was clear. This wasn't just a bumpy press cycle, it was a full-blown brand meltdown. Then came the silence. No heartfelt Instagram essays, no IG lives about healing or personal growth. Meghan, normally so quick to control the story, vanished behind her curated aesthetic while the internet took over the narrative. And that retreat? It was deafening. Her usual media strategy, a blend of empowerment buzz and strategic vulnerability, was nowhere to be seen. This time, no amount of elegant spin could save the message. Not when the backlash was triggered by someone who doesn't engage in public drama. Sir David Attenborough didn't need a press junket or a viral tweet. He didn't post a reel. He didn't even raise his voice. All it took was a single 4-word message. Don't use my name. And that carried more weight than any glossy endorsement ever could. Because while Meghan built her image on curated partnerships and aspirational messaging, Attenborough built his on decades of real, visible work. His name means something, not because it's marketed, but because it's earned. And when someone like that draws a line in the sand, there are consequences. Retail analysts began speaking out. The verdict was blunt. Unless the brand undergoes a total reinvention, complete with public accountability, American Riviera Orchard has no future. Trust had been broken, and in the world of lifestyle branding, trust is everything. But according to those close to Meghan, admitting fault was never on the table. She didn't see a branding mistake. She saw sabotage. In her eyes, it was just another smear campaign, another orchestrated strike against her public image, another reason to feel misunderstood and unfairly targeted. But even her loyal supporters were running out of defenses. When respected figures from Britain's cultural elite begin pulling away, you're not just under fire, you're left standing alone. Meghan had constructed her brand like a fortress, cloaked in prestige, powered by proximity to icons. But all it took was one powerful voice to expose the cracks. And now, everyone was watching, waiting to see if the whole image would unravel. The true cost wasn't media backlash or jam jars gathering dust in a warehouse. It was something far more devastating, a shift in public perception. Meghan Markle's carefully crafted identity as a forward-thinking, purpose-driven entrepreneur had taken a critical hit, not because of an unfair headline or out-of-context soundbite. No, this blow came from the most unimpeachable source possible. When Sir David Attenborough speaks, people don't shrug. They don't question motives. They listen. They trust. So when he said publicly and unequivocally, "Don't use my name," it wasn't tabloid gossip. It was a cultural judgment. This was never about jam. It wasn't about branding, rustic fonts, or garden-themed aesthetics. It was about credibility. The one thing Meghan had been collecting from others for years, hoping some of it would rub off. And for a while, it worked. Her image thrived through strategic alignment. The right names, the right causes, the right buzzwords. But then someone finally said, "Not me." And when that someone is David Attenborough, the illusion doesn't just fade, It crashes. What made it even more devastating? He wasn't some random critic she could dismiss. He's part of the royal circle, a lifelong ally of the monarchy, a trusted environmental advisor to King Charles, a collaborator with Queen Elizabeth, and one of the few public figures in the UK who's remained completely above reproach. He is, quite literally, untouchable. So when he took a step back and made it clear he wanted no association, it wasn't just a personal embarrassment. It was symbolic, a quiet, devastating sign that the grown-ups had stopped playing along. For the public, already skeptical of celebrity-led activism, it was the final red flag. Meghan's take on sustainability began to feel more like a carefully styled performance than a lived conviction. Her eco-claims lacked depth. Her lifestyle brand looked more staged than sincere. And suddenly, even the people she had once drawn close were walking away. There's nothing more isolating than climbing the social ladder and realizing you've reached a rung where no one else wants to stand beside you. Meanwhile, inside her team, quiet panic. Professional on the outside, but in crisis behind the scenes. Strategy meetings were held. Options were laid out. Some pushed for a tear-filled interview. Others proposed a pivot, new products, a new name, maybe even shelving the entire project until the heat cooled off. But none of it worked. Because the problem wasn't the jam, it was trust. And that's not something you can repackage and relaunch. It all came down to one thing: perception. And in the world of personal branding, perception is everything. Meghan's entire business model thrived on public admiration and curated credibility. But as the silence dragged on, that admiration started to erode. Some speculated she was orchestrating a grand return, a strategic comeback moment, maybe a red carpet appearance with a trusted celebrity ally. But as the weeks rolled by, there was nothing. Just faint murmurs of behind-the-scenes crisis meetings, reshuffled teams, PR agencies on standby, and the occasional influencer quietly scrubbing American Riviera orchard tags from old posts. But the internet doesn't forgive, and it certainly doesn't forget. Screenshots were saved, memes went viral, and just like that, the story solidified in the public imagination. Meghan Markle tried to use Sir David Attenborough's name to sell jam, and he shut it down with 4 words. That phrase, "Don't use my name," became both the punchline and the knockout punch. And while the headlines eventually moved on, the reputational damage lingered like a bruise that wouldn't fade. American Riviera Orchard became a textbook example of what not to do when launching a lifestyle brand. A warning tale about the risks of leaning too hard on borrowed legitimacy and mistaking proximity for permission. Meghan had aimed to cement her role as a modern visionary, a tastemaker, a voice for mindful luxury. But instead, she became a cautionary hashtag. No statement ever came, no clarification, no thoughtful essay, no sit-down interview with a soft focus lens. Just more of the same, that pristine, calculated silence. The same silence that once symbolized control now felt like a PR bandage barely holding back the fallout. But the damage was done, because once the mask slips, you don't get to control the angle. You don't get to decide how people interpret what they see. And what they saw was someone trying to market authenticity without earning it. And in today's culture, where credibility must be proven, not performed, that's a label that sticks, and one that's nearly impossible to recover from. What do you think? Was this a simple branding misstep, or the moment Meghan's image finally cracked? Drop your thoughts below. We're reading everything.